Hey, Candace! Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to chat with you. So, at Nectar, we have the Create framework, and one of the E's within that framework is empathy. And when I was thinking about having this conversation, you came to mind immediately because ever since the day I met you, you have led with empathy and this empathic way of responding to people, whether they're strangers or your closest friends. And I know that you've woven that into the businesses you've run and the relationships that you've been a part of. So talk me through that. Like, what's your definition of empathy? What does empathy mean to you?
Emily, so grateful to just be talking about something that is so important to me. Empathy, I like to break down two layers of that word when I think about it myself. And so on a very high level, right, the top of the umbrella, empathy is the ability to feel and sense something that somebody else is experiencing, right? And then I also like to go deeper into that, and it's this fine tuning of how you want to connect and engage based on what you feel in somebody else. And so we're all empathetic creatures. We all can sense and feel what's happening outside of our beings. Some of us are more in tune with that than others. And some of us are on the journey where we're like, I'm going to lead my life governed by that philosophy. And so I'm one of those people. I really enjoy making note of what I'm feeling and as a result, engaging and connecting with people in a way that, amplifies, nourishes, encourages, empowers, emboldens them because there's so much power that we get access to when we lead our lives that way.
Awesome. Do you have any stories to share of could be good or bad, but a time where empathy was either present and it made a big difference or wasn't present and really hurt the situation?
It's interesting. So I started a business in 2017 and I knew pretty much right away in that business I wanted to be a life coach. I really enjoy learning about people's life stories. I really enjoy helping people navigate challenges, roadblocks, and also celebrate the wins in their lives. And I didn't have any experience doing it professionally, but I knew that I'd kind of been a life coach my entire life based on the interactions that I've had with people. And one of my big learning curves as I stepped into this role was managing my empathy effectively in terms of being a coach. And I found that because I was able to sense and feel other people's emotions and energy so much, I would actually become kind of washed in that energy and absorb it myself. And so as I'm having these, sometimes really challenging conversations with other people and helping them hold space for painful things, for grief, for deep emotions, I was holding on to that and it was affecting my mental, emotional, physical well being. And so I had to really you know, I had to hold myself accountable, hold some boundaries, create some rituals for cleansing and releasing other people's energy because, every skill that you have has the other side of it where it can be a weakness or a growth opportunity, growth area for you. So that's one I think, is not commonly thought of. A lot of highly empathetic people have that challenge that they have to navigate that you can obviously strengthen over time. But yeah, that was something that I didn't anticipate experiencing as I started off as a life coach.
Fascinating. Yeah, we don't usually think about how our greatest strengths can be working against us if we lean into them too heavily or hold them too closely. That's really intuitive. So, next, I just want to talk a little bit about like leaders and managers and people who are overseeing other people. I think it's really important to talk about the soft skills. That's huge. We talk about that all the time as we help companies build their culture. And when you think about soft skills that leaders can possess, I feel like empathy is pretty important. How does it rank for you among kind of the soft skills? Not that we should rank soft skills, but if you had to, where does that kind of fit with all the other ones?
Ooh, it's really high up there. I
Yeah.
think empathy doesn't, I've done some research on empathy, and there's three different components of it. There's like this cognitive component that I think gets overlooked with empathy. That's like, I take in, I observe, I feel, I sense, and then I actually cognitively process that. And so I think empathy just, the other portions of empathy are emotional capacity and compassion. And I think that's what people think of most commonly when they start to process empathy, or when they start to think about how empathy is utilized in community. I want to be compassionate. I want to be thinking about what someone might be navigating. I want to be emotional and vulnerable and connect with them. But then we lose sight of this cognitive processing that says, based on what I'm taking in, how can I more effectively govern space? How can I more effectively call people into space and into connection? How can I more effectively set people up for success based on what I've observed? And I think that actually, if more people were engaging with empathy in that way, we'd have much stronger leadership in our communities, and we'd have much more engaged communities because people are being actively called in and held accountable based on what, you're sensing. And I think coaching has taught me this a great deal. People want you to, yes, be vulnerable, yes, be intimate with them in terms of connection. They want you to be compassionate, but they also want to be held accountable, right? If they're in their low moments, if they've failed, quote unquote, or if they have not met the standards that they know that they can achieve, right? They sense, I'm not showing up in the way that I want to be showing up. If you then don't cognitively process that and say, okay, I'm compassionate, but here's my idea of how we can get you to where you need to be, and hold them accountable, you're kind of missing out on a really huge opportunity for growth, for success, for learning from failure, learning through like a growing process.
Awesome. Another question I had for you was, there are managers out there who have really risen through the ranks based on their output and the results that they've driven for the company. And it's been really metrics focused, numbers focused. And for those who are looking at that and now they're in charge of, these millennials and these Gen Z employees who are really thinking about these things and talking about these things, and the managers thinking to themselves and realizing, I've never really focused on empathy or some of these soft skills as a leadership trait or something that I should be paying attention to, or how it affects the people around me, but they want to. Is there a good place that they should start? Is there a way that they can develop into that with just how present we are and how much we have these conversations? That can be a scary leap to try to take on this soft skill that you feel like you haven't developed in all your years. What would you say to that?
I love this question. I think soft skills have the capacity to be measured when they're tied to concrete metrics. And so I love OKR's, objective and key results, as part of a goal setting strategy within any organization I'm a part of. It really grounds me, and I think it creates unified, connection to and progress toward a common goal. And so I think that if you have some core values or soft skills that you're trying to integrate, connecting them to an OKR and being experimental. Something that I latched onto through a mentor of mine is, your work shouldn't be a soap opera. It shouldn't be like a melodrama. And I think that when we build in these soft skills, people anticipate that that might happen. But instead, if you treat it like a science experiment, and if you operate as a scientist and just run experiments of, okay, what happens if we introduce the qualities of empathy into our team meetings? Do they end faster? Do we reach common consensus among the group faster? And you tie that to some of your the growth opportunities that you have on a more metrics based or a more tangible, concrete base as an experiment. I think they're easy ways, or you're working toward a goal that you already have. So you're not disrupting the flow of what you're trying to achieve within your community, but you're also enhancing and fine tuning through the lens of your soft skills. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that, especially because they don't want to, like you said, they don't want to see it as this soap opera. They don't want to get too soft with it, I guess you could say. And I love that you spoke right to that individual who does see it as they see themselves as a scientist. Everything is very metrics focused and kind of brought that right back to exactly how they operate. So, what a cool response. Anything else you wanted to cover? Anything else that comes to mind as we think about empathy?
Something that has been heavy on my mind and my heart in the past few years is how much I think we minimize our capacity for empathy. We look at it as this experience of to be, I don't know, demonize is maybe a harsh word, but we look at it and we say like, oh man, I'm so empathetic, or I'm so sensitive, or you're so sensitive, right? And I think it can be leveraged as this thing to resist or this thing to shy away from. And I want to just, I don't know, encourage folks to understand that we're all empathetic. We are all designed to feel. That is a skill set, that is an innate human processing capacity that we have. And I think if more of us were leveraging it as a skill set, leveraging it as kind of a thermostat, right? A way to assess what's happening around us, we could actually solve problems more effectively. We could solve them more efficiently. We could be more intentional, right? I feel like sometimes we find challenges in our lives and we kind of circle around the challenge for 3, 4, 5 years. Whereas if we use our empathic capacity and our deep sensing capacity, we could probably get to the heart of the matter much faster. And it might be one hard conversation that needs to happen rather than a whole year of someone being disgruntled or feeling undervalued or feeling frustrated in the workplace and then leaving with institutional knowledge, with institutional resources, with time lost, and with friction and tension. So I just am encouraging people to honor that skill set rather than feeling like it's secondary, rather than feeling like it needs to be kind of hidden behind closed doors. I think we would have so much more success, right? We would be able to amplify our sense of success in terms of dollar bills, because I know that's important for corporations. I think empathy can actually help us make more money because we know exactly what our clientele wants. We know exactly what our consumer wants when we speak to them empathically and when we sense what challenges they're navigating. So that's a little bit of a ramble at this point, but I do think that it's a superpower that's going underutilized, right? And I'm wishing that more people tapped into using that specifically in corporate settings.
Yeah. I'm finding that, I mean, outside of corporate settings too, how much empathy actually leads to some of these other soft skills or almost soft outcomes. Like for me, the more empathy that I practice in my own life, the more I'm forgiving for things, the more I'm like learning some of those other skills because the second I go, okay, you're feeling this, you're experiencing this, you're going through this in your life, and I put myself in their shoes, kind of makes sense why they did or said that thing to me. It's not right. I don't want it to happen again. I don't need to say that it's okay, but that's not what forgiveness is. And so, helping me with some of those other soft skills is another reason to lean into things like empathy. So, thank you so much for having this chat, Candace. This is really great. I can't wait to share this with the world. Yeah, again, just thanks for being here and thanks for being your empathic self and sharing that with everyone.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Emily.
All right. Bye bye.